Boy, what are you? Come on. All right, let's do a trick. Come get the measuring tape. Come get the measuring tape. Ooh, you want the measuring tape. You want the measuring. Ani, giving you another ribbon skirt on the channel, but this one is more for my alt folks, my Deftones girlies. First step is to unfold the fabric from how it was on the bolt and then fold it a half again the other way. Then I'm taking my waist measurement as well as the measurement of how long I want the skirt to be, beginning at where I want the waistband of the skirt to sit and then measuring down to where I want the skirt to end. This skirt will be about a mid-calf length skirt. And hey, I lost an inch on my stomach. I'll explain more in a moment, but the waist measurement is not going to be the exact thing that we're going to cut. We're actually going to add quite a bit of fabric to that. I will quickly go through what I did. So I'm going for a 50-inch waist. So divided that in two so I can create 2 panels. That's 25 inches at the waist. You know, once you add the 25, the front and back, then you get 50 all around. And for the hem, I'm going for a 60-inch hem, so 30-inch hem. I also added 1 inch to both of those. So it's 26 up here, 31 up here, and that's for seam allowance on the side seams. I cut my skirt to be 37 inches long, and that's so I get a 33-inch end result. 1 inch of that is for the hem, and then 3 inches of that is for the waistband. So 33 plus 4 is 37. So what I did first was I started with, oh my god. All right, so what I did first was I started with the hem measurement. First, I found the 31 inches and I marked, and then I found the midpoint of the 31 inches and then I marked it right there. After finding that midpoint, from there, I measured the 37 inches and then I marked it. Where are you? Right there. There it is. Hopefully you can see. So that is 37 inches from this mark. And then once I found that, then I measured the 26 inches. I did 12 and a half this way and 12 and a half that way. And that's how I found my waist measurement while keeping it kind of centered with the hem so that you don't end up with your skirt wonky to one side. After finding the waist, then I just connected the waist to each part of the hem and I marked it. And the next thing to do after that is to cut this out. This fabric is folded in half, so it will produce 2 pieces. All right, so as you can see, it has this almost A-frame shape. The hem is slightly wider than the waist. And I'm out of breath because I always have to get down to the floor to cut this stuff out. So for this next part, I'm actually not going to be able to measure out like where I place my ribbon the way I normally do, which is like measuring as I'm sewing it onto the machine. And that's because the first thing I'm putting down, well, you'll see in a second. So all I'm doing right here, right now, is I'm measuring from the hem 16 inches. And that is obviously normally like more than I typically do. Usually I start about 6 inches from the hem or so. And this is completely a design choice. So here you're seeing that not everything to do with ribbon skirt making is based on rules. We can do pretty much whatever we want as long as it's pretty. And of course, don't forget that everything you do on one side, you have to do to the other. So I've got my machine all set up here with the fabric on there. And if you can see this line, that's the line that I just marked. The first thing that I'm laying down actually is not going to be ribbon. It's going to be this lace stuff that I have here. It's just from this roll of lace that I picked up at my Joann's when it was closing. Sad story. But I'm just going to kind of lay this on the fabric, giving lots of extra here just in case. And I'm going to lay it right over top of the line, so right where my fingernail ends, that's where the line is, and I'm just overlapping that, and it'll be covered up by a ribbon eventually. But I'm going to take it to the machine, and then I'm going to sew this on using a zigzag stitch about every, let's see, I think about every 3.5 inches. I'm going to add a tiny little pleat. You can't see that. Just for those who are interested, I just have a piece of scrap fabric here. When you form a pleat, here's the fabric when it's flat. Basically, you take a pinch of it and then you lay that pinch over top of the fabric next to it. And what that does is it forms a little pleat. And I'm just doing that because I don't necessarily want the lace to be right up against the fabric. Not that I don't think that wouldn't look nice. I actually almost did it that way, but I think putting one pleat like every so often is just going to help it kind of raise off of the fabric a little bit. All right, now I have the lace on. I did go through and remark with chalk over top of the lace. I was hoping I would be able to see the mark from underneath the lace, but it kind of disappeared from me like rubbing it off while putting the lace on. But next, I'm going to again take this to the machine. I have this wide black ribbon here, and I'm going to line up the edge of this black ribbon with the mark, the chalk mark that I just made. And then I'm going to zigzag stitch that side and this side. Now I'm going to continue laying more ribbon down the way that I typically do. I don't like glue it down or pin it down or anything ahead of time. I just sort of measure as I sew it on. So the first ribbon, I have one that's slightly smaller than the one before. Hopefully you can even see that, my goodness. Very interesting project to film. But this first one, I'm going to lay it down about 1 inch away from this bigger one, and then I'm going to put on another smaller ribbon, and that one I think I'm going to only do about 1/2 inch away from this one. Next, I serged all of the edges of the skirt, and then because I've made many skirts on this channel and will continue to make skirts on here, I just want you to imagine me sewing the skirt panels together, hemming and ironing. For an optional but helpful trick that my maiden's mother taught me, stitch down the seam allowance just at the last inch or so of the waistband area to prevent the seam allowance from catching the waistband as you feed it through the tube you will eventually create. Now for the meat and potatoes of this skirt. Here I am playing with the chain that I have in order to figure out where to link it to the fabric so that the spaces and dips are even. I used these jump rings that can be pried open in order to attach the chains. With my measuring tape, I found the placement of each jump ring, spaced about 8 3/4 inches apart and 3.5 inches above the top ribbon. Then, with an awl, I poked 2 small holes on either side of that point. Now I'm inserting the jump ring into one hole and back out the other, basically piercing the skirt. But I want to note here that I don't close the jump ring right away. I feel like there's a joke about alt girlies and piercings somewhere in here. I then attached a chain link to the jump ring before closing it. And just to note here, I did have to later reopen 2 jump rings to attach the second chain on the other side of the skirt. So in total, there are 6 jump rings inserted into the skirt. With the skirt folded in half, I inserted 2 rings on the side and 2 rings on each of the front and back panels. Alright, so I have inserted 4 of these rings, and I've put the chain in only 2 of them. These 2 remain open, and that's because I wanted to get each end of the chain in first and then do the middle ones just so I can make sure that I am attaching the correct link in these rings in order to get an even dip